shortly. We are honoured to acknowledge the Australian Political Exchange Council 15th delegation from New Zealand in attendance this evening. We also warmly welcome the delegation representing the Pakistan National Defence University. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Return and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Club Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Robert Lang Dickson. Robert Dickson was born on the 12th of May, 1892 in the Sydney suburb of Balmain. Known as Bert, he was the eldest of 9 children born to surveyor Robert James Dickson and his wife Teresa. Bert's youngest brother William died only 2 days after his birth in 1904. Their mother Teresa passed away a few months later. Robert Sr. remarried in 1906 and the couple had 1 son together. By 1914, the family were living in Kempsey, New South Wales, where Robert Sr. was employed as a draftsman and surveyor. Bert Dickson followed in his father's footsteps, finding work as a surveyor's assistant while studying to qualify as a licensed surveyor. Dickson enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force shortly after the outbreak of the First World War, signing his papers in Liverpool Recruiting Depot on the 22nd of October 1914. He was allotted to C Company of the 13th Infantry Battalion. After 2 months of initial training, Private Robert Dickson departed Melbourne on board the troop ship Ulysses on the 22nd of December 1914, bound for Egypt. Dickson arrived in Alexandria on the 31st of January 1915. Along with the rest of the 13th Battalion, he spent the next 2.5 months training at Heliopolis Camp on the outskirts of Cairo, before sailing to the Greek island of Lemnos in mid-April. There, the 13th Battalion spent a week preparing for their role in the upcoming Gallipoli landing. The 13th Battalion formed part of the latter landing parties at Anzac Cove on the 25th of April 1915, arriving on the beach between 4:30 p.m. on the 25th and before dawn the next morning. After scrambling their way up the steep cliffs, the battalion was heavily involved in establishing and defending the new front line. Over the next month, the 13th Battalion alternated between manning the front line trenches at Pope's Hill and Quinn's Post and waiting in reserve in Monash Valley. On the 11th of May, during a quiet moment in the trenches at Pope's Hill, Bert Dickson sat down to write to his family. He wrote, "You could not imagine the awful time we have been through since landing. The first week was just hell. However, I lived through it and I don't know. It was like a dreadful nightmare. It seemed impossible to live amid the awful hail of bullets and the roar and shriek of the bursting shrapnel. I would not go through the first 50 minutes again for anything. Our christening was an awful experience. It is my birthday tomorrow, one I expect, if I have the luck to get through this, I will remember. All the boys are cheerful and looking well and are always ready when the call to arms comes. They are indeed a fearless lot and a real credit to dear old Australia." At the end of May 1915, the 13th Battalion resumed their positions in the trenches at Quinn's Post. On the 29th, the Ottomans shelled and bombed a segment of their trenches. The battalion sustained 84 casualties during the attack. One of the casualties was Private Robert Dickson, who suffered from wounds to his shoulder that penetrated his chest. Bert was rushed off the peninsula and admitted to the hospital ship Gascon for transport to hospital at Lemnos or in Egypt. He never made it to hospital. Private Robert Dickson died of wounds sustained in action on the 29th of May 1915 while on board the Gascon. He was 23 years old. Bert Dickson's remains were buried at sea, 3 miles off the coast of Gallipoli. He is commemorated on the Lone Pine Memorial, alongside the names of over 4,000 Australians who have no known grave or who were buried at sea during and after the Gallipoli campaign. His name is also listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Robert Lang Dickson, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.